Hey YouTube, Ron here again with a quick book review. The book for today is called The Decision Book, 50 Models for Strategic Thinking. I was drawn to this book because I'm a big fan of Charlie Munger as an investor. I mean, everyone likes Warren Buffett, but I personally enjoy reading both the almanac and just the ideas, the investment ideas of Charlie Munger. And one of the things he always talks about, some of the things that make you a good investor is the ability to understand various models. So being able to understand more than one way of thinking and being able to combine those ways of thinking into a lattice work that ultimately makes you a better investor, because it allows you to see the world less of how you'd want it to be, but more so of how it really is. So it's a really good book. It's got about 130 pages or so. It's written by two authors, Krogerus and Roman Tschäppeler. I'm butchering his name. You can kind of see there. So it's two guys that wrote this book. Again, really good book. It's like a food for thought book. So it's a kind of book you can read for like 5-10 minutes each day if you want. And each of the models are covered over just a couple of pages. So it's really short, really easy reading. It's not the kind of book where you have to sit down and read it cover to cover, read an entire chapter to get out of it. Again, it has like 50 primary models. Some of the questions that it's going to answer are things like what is a Pareto principle? What is a black swan? What is long tail when it comes to like decision making? What does your taste in music say about you? Pretty interesting. I learned some stuff about that from reading this. Again, really interesting book about just, again, covering different models. The book is broken down into 4 key areas. So the 4 key areas are, 1, how to improve yourself, how to understand yourself better, how to understand others better, and then finally, how to improve others. So 4 areas: how to improve yourself, how to understand yourself better, how to understand other people better, and then finally, how to improve other people. I'll take a couple of examples out of each one of these. So on page 25, on the section on how to improve yourself, this is a really, it's an interesting part, because one of the hardest things, one of the things that all people like are to receive compliments, and one of the things that most people dislike are to receive criticism or advice to some extent, right? So page 25 talks about like the feedback model, and it talks about how how compliments, misplaced compliments when someone says, "Oh, you're so great at XYZ," when you're really not, and when it's not, it's kind of disingenuous. How in many ways that can make you complacent. So if you were not good at something, someone giving you compliments where it's not really due will hamper you in actually becoming, world class at anything. And then conversely, how criticism, not necessarily advice, there's a big difference between criticism and advice. Criticism, the idea of it is to try and break you down. It's not really to try and help a person and to improve themselves. It's more so the idea of just like, I can't do something, and I see you trying to do it, so I'm gonna, speak to you in a very negative way, provide very negative feedback. I'm presenting why there are so many problems with what you're doing, but not providing any solutions, which is, in many ways, the definition of criticism. One point about this: so on each one of the lessons, there's always like a little quote. So this one really stuck out to me because I really enjoyed it. So it's on page 24. It goes like this. It says, "Pay attention to your thoughts because they become words. Pay attention to words because they become actions. Pay attention to your actions because they become habits. Pay attention to your habits because they become your character. And then finally, pay attention to your character because it is your fate." And that's from the Talmud. And it was, it's really good. It kind of goes back to something you get in many other books on self-help, that, it always begins with thought. Thought is the seed of all achievement. So really, what you think about drives what you say, and what you say, you internalize that, and it becomes the actions that you take. So it just really goes back to being very careful about what you allow to enter your mind, what you allow yourself to ponder on, what you allow yourself to think about, because it really ultimately will shape who you become as a person. So, really paying attention to your thoughts. So kind of a segue, kind of, a small tangent, but I really enjoyed that, so I wanted to share that. The third section on how to understand yourself better, it talks about the black swan model. And I'd heard of like the black swan before, right? But not necessarily understood how the model worked. And what was interesting is it pointed out that the gentleman that came up with that said that, your past experiences don't necessarily improve your ability to predict the future, which is kind of counterintuitive, right? We think throughout life, as you go through life and you learn more things, and your past experiences allow you to become a better decision maker, which is there's a lot of truth to that, but it doesn't necessarily improve your ability to predict the future. Great example. You look at like what happened on September 11th, right? prior to, the two planes being flown into the buildings, no one really would, people didn't necessarily think something like that would necessarily happen, but, going back after the fact, when they analyze, it's the fact that some of the terrorists had gotten pulled over, that, how they came into the country, that they're taking flying lessons, they're trying to learn how to fly a plane, but not learn how to land it. You look at all these different pieces, all these facts that many people, throughout the country that had interactions with these guys thought that something was wrong, but yet those experiences didn't allow them to necessarily predict what was going to happen in the future. So that's the idea of the black swan. Not necessarily, I'm thinking, I guess, not becoming so confident in your past experiences to think that you know what's going to happen in the future, because life has a funny way of always surprising us. So again, that's really good. An important point about the book, not really necessarily a lesson, but it kind of goes back to, again, how your time is best spent. So I said there's 4 sections in this book, right? 4 major sections: how to improve yourself, how to understand yourself better, how to understand others better, and then finally how to improve yourself. Now, here's the interesting point about this book, right? It's a book of models, like models taken throughout history. Some of them written in contemporary times. Some of them, there's quotes from Eisenhower in here. Some much older ones. So the first 82 pages of the book. So remember, this book's only got 130 pages or so. The first 82 pages of the book are focused on improving yourself. So the sections on how to improve yourself, how to understand yourself better, that takes up like 82 pages of the book. Only the remaining 38 pages of the book, focus on how to understand others. And then like 12 pages, a very small amount, is dedicated to the last section on how to improve others. So what's the lesson in that, right? If you think about it, 82 pages, the majority of the book, the bulk of the book, on how to improve yourself, how to change yourself, because that's something you can actually do. And then the remaining, 38 pages on how to understand others, which is helpful, but then the smallest part on how you can improve others, because really you can't really, who's it said that, to be in yourself the change that you want to see in the world. So it really shows that, not necessarily when it comes to this book, but just in life in general, your time is much better spent in many ways working on yourself than trying to look at what other people are doing and saying, I'm going to fix them. I'm going to make them do X, Y, Z because it's going to make things better. Because in reality, you're really not, right? It's much easier to fix yourself and then have other people observe the kind of person you've become and let your example, move them to make change in their life. So again, there's a really short review. Again, the name of the book is The Decision Book, 50 Models for Strategic Thinking. Really short book. You can get it on Amazon. I really enjoyed it. Again, it's not like a Think or Grow Rich or like a biography like the Sam Walton book or anything like that. It's not something that you have to read. In other words, I read this along with another book that I'm reading, the bigger investment book by Buffett. So again, it's a book that I would mix in with your other reading, because again, it's like you can literally read like 3 or 4 pages and get something out of it. So it's like more 50 small lessons that you can kind of just incorporate. So there's no reason to really rush through it. It's a book that you should definitely add to your collection, I think. Definitely wholeheartedly approve this one. Great book. And if you guys found this useful, please subscribe. Leave a comment below. I really like to read your comments. I read all of them, and I'm still trying to grow my subscriber base. So subscribe, leave a comment, share this with anybody. If there's any feedback that you guys can provide on how advice you can provide, not necessarily criticism, but advice that you can provide to me on how I can make these videos better, they can be more helpful to you, please feel free to do that. Thanks again for taking the time to look at this, and hope you found it helpful.